Hi, this is Bakersoft. Um, I figured I'd give back to the Steam community by putting together some video, tutorials or walkthroughs, playthroughs, whatever you want to call them, tips and tricks of the game called The Long Dark, which is currently in alpha on Steam, available for $20, and it's version 1.83. First video I wanted to go through was just to kind of cover some of the startup stuff, menu options, game modes, key bindings, and some of the maps. So first thing when you start the game up, you'll get this little thing about disclaimer about the alpha version, so on and so forth, basically telling you, hey, there's gonna be bugs. We're just trying to figure out what we're doing here. Um, we're still developing it, basically what it comes down to. So it's not a fully featured game. Is expected to be There's expected to be bugs and whatnot. So yeah. So as you can read, hey, we're not attempting to create realistic wildlife behavior. We know that wolves do not typically attack people. They don't condone, the destruction of wildlife. So they don't condone you just going around blasting everything in the face, unless you absolutely need to. But anyways, so first screen you get is this. You click to continue, and the second screen you get will be the loading screen for the game. So to point out, first we have menu options. We have story, sandbox, load, options, and quit. Well, obviously everyone should know what quit does. That will quit the game. Story mode actually isn't available right now, so when you play this game you're actually playing in the sandbox mode. Story mode is more of something they gotta work on for future release. So right now they have sandbox mode. Sandbox mode gives you the ability to choose different difficulty levels, really, is instead of, that's what they call your experience, but in reality it's difficulty levels. Pilgrim is the first one, which is just for, players looking to get into a game, do a lot of investigative work, really just looking around, looking for stuff. So if you like to search, if you're like a search type person, you like to search around in games, hunt for things, and not be bothered by the wildlife and having to defend yourself, then that mode's for you. Voyager is essentially a step up from that, where you walk around, you also be hunted by the wildlife as well, so they will come looking for you, but not enough to necessarily take you out every time. Then you have Stalker mode, which is basically everything's out to kill you, and if they find you, you're gonna probably die. So good luck with that one. For some of my future videos with this game, I'm gonna be choosing to use play in Pilgrim mode, just so that we don't need to worry too much about wildlife and attacks. It's more just to show you some tips and tricks of the games, where to find things, some resources at your fingertips that you can use also to make gameplay a lot easier. Let's say if we were to start this, then you get to choose between a male or a female before you confirm, and then you would actually choose male or female, and then you get to choose your region, Mystery Lake or Coastal Highway. So that's those options when you go in the sandbox. As far as the options are concerned, there's a lot of options you can choose from. You have resolution, which I have screen resolution, what kind of quality your graphics are on. Mine are ultra in this case. Full screen or windowed, your unit of measure. I choose 24-hour clock type. HUD, sorry, for beginners, and maybe even those who like to play the game a lot. I mean, you probably want to turn on this debug option for the display. This actually gives you the ability to see when you're playing the game on the left corner of the screen. You actually see the coordinates of where you're currently located. You can turn on subtitles. Not sure if that actually does anything or not. Your field of view, the language, there are 3 languages to choose from. Sound level, I need to turn this down again. Turn this down to 20, so hopefully you can actually hear me in the first part of the game, but okay. And then you have different run methods, your key bindings, all your basic key bindings: crouch, interact, shoot, throw and aim, reload, your WSAD, forward, back, left, right, your survival panel, inventory, and then also some 4 hotkeys for equipping particular items of the game that come in very use. And that's pretty much the options. Now, as far as the maps, we did cover the maps, which I will show those to you. Actually, there's a few maps that were provided by the Steam community. Show these here, which are kind of useful. Well, actually, very useful. So, the first map you have here is of Coastal Highway. That is the spawn point that I particularly choose to start from, just because there seems to be quite a bit more cabins here than in Mystery Lake, and things seem to be relatively closer together. There are obviously some gaps and stuff, but as you can see, I mean, relatively speaking, compared to Mystery Lake, a lot of these cabins and whatnot they seem a lot closer to me. So now you have some that are like kind of way off the map down here. By the way, you probably shouldn't go down here because I've never been down here, but instant death is probably not something you want if you're trying to stay alive. Well, obviously that's the objective of the game, is to survive as long as you can. So there's that. All the green items represent the cabins. There's some docks in the game. Some of these are labeled if they have special significance. This is in particular an abandoned lookout. Mostly there's just regular cabins or trailers. And then you have like Log Sort is actually more of what they call a region in the game. Same thing for Coastal Town Site, Silent Clearing, and you have the train unloading, to the ravine. So all those are like significant areas in the game. Fishing camp as well. Jackrabbit Island, Misanthrope's Island, or Homestead, sorry. And then all these yellow things are little kind of like fishing huts. So that kind of explains that. And actually, while we're on the subject of the map, we'll go jump to the next one, which this is Mystery Lake. As you can see, I mean, Mystery Lake is freaking huge. This, I think, was the first map of the game. I think Coastal Highway was I'm assuming a recent addition or somewhat recent addition. I haven't been playing since the beginning, so I don't really know the history of the maps, but I think this was seemingly a newer map to the game. Now, if you can tell, looking at Mystery Lake, see, in comparison to the Coastal Highway, you'll notice that, like, you have some cabins around here, but then, like, everything else, there's, like, a cabin way over here that's, like, miles away from the lake, and you have another one way up here, which is miles away from everything else, except for this lookout. But then there's not really much in terms of cabins, other cabins close by. You have the logging camp, and then you've got, like, a hydro dam up here. So there's some items, there's some places to go over here, but there doesn't seem to be as many. And from playing on the Coastal Highway, it seems like there's a lot more clothing and loot and whatnot in those areas than when I spent time coming down into Mystery Lake. The other thing, the only real reason I think to come over here, which is the only reason why I come over to Mystery Lake for the most part, is for these little shelters they have. So there's like 8 or 9 different shelters that could potentially that are available in the game, but like per game session, when the game starts up, it determines like which one of these actually has a shelter. So you could actually go to all these various bomb shelter locations, and there's bound to be one that will be there, but most of them will not be there, which is it's a bunker location, which is kind of annoying, but hey, that's the way it works. So there's a probability of each one to load. So it could end up being this one way over here, it could be this one way over here, or down here. All you need to know is that there's just one that will load per game. So, the one cool thing that I thought they did with this was you can actually, if let's say you're starting in Coastal Highway, which, like I said, that's usually what I do, and for the intent of my videos going forward, that's how I plan to play, is when you get over to, you can actually head up this river. You just walk up the river because it's frozen over, all the way up to this ravine up here. And actually, when you walk all the way down, you'll cross this bridge and you'll walk all the way into this ravine, and then you'll see like a bunch of rocks and stuff, and you say, well, what the heck, I guess I can't go anywhere else. No, that's not the case. You can actually keep walking, and then at some point, some text will show up on the screen saying to ravine. You can click the text, and it actually takes you to like a ravine, like a a bridge gap between actually train tracks that bridge the gap between Coastal Highway and the Mystery Lake. So once you cross that ravine, which you should do somewhat carefully, at least on one part of it, um, once you cross the ravine, you will actually be over here on this ravine part of Mystery Lake, and you can then come over and um, whatever on Mystery Lake. The only thing I advise about before doing that is making sure that you have all the right. You want to have as many materials as possible before making that type of trip. Making sure that you're capable of surviving for a certain period of time before you try to make that haul, because it's not something that you necessarily do easily without staying at multiple places for multiple nights potentially to survive the cold. But yeah, so I mean that pretty much covers the maps, and like what I'll do is I will put links to these in the video description, so that you guys, for starters, you have the maps. And actually, the other reason why this comes into play, kind of tying back to something said earlier, in the options menu, we talked about the coordinates. So the coordinates on here literally map directly one-to-one to the coordinates in the game. So these little fishing camps, it says coordinate negative 700, 730, 650. You can basically use the coordinates in game to find your way to this particular spot on the map. So that's pretty neat. So I mean, like I said, it may be, some people might think that's kind of cheating or something. That's fine. If you don't want to use the coordinates, then don't use the coordinates. That's fine. If you want to use the map and just use the map for what it is, then that's fine too. If you don't want to use the map, then don't use the map and walk around and maybe you'll just starve to death. I don't know, but but I think that's really where it helps out, is making sure that you can find what you're looking for sooner and get your gear sooner. And I mentioned during the gameplay, when I play the game, I mentioned that I'll be using the Pilgrim option, and mainly is because I heard or read actually players on the Steam community talking about playing these other game types, and there was definitely a lot of not a lot, but there were at least some players that complained about the fact that, hey, I started like Stalker or Voyager, and literally within like 2 minutes of getting in the game, like a wolf found me and just killed me, or I couldn't find a place, I couldn't find a house or a cabin to stay at, so I basically just starved to death or froze to death. And it's kind of like, well, if you're playing for the first time, you don't want that to be your experience. You want to enjoy the game first. So I suggest starting with Pilgrim, and then if once you kind of get comfortable enough with the map and knowing where things are at, and then you want to start dealing with combat against the wildlife, particularly the wolves, then you would jump to a Voyager and and advance from there. So I think that covers just about everything I wanted to cover in this first video. I guess if you have any questions for me in particular, leave them at the bottom in the comment section. Any constructive comments are definitely welcome. If you like the video, click the like button, or let me know in the comments how much you like it, and if you want to see more videos in the future from me. So until the next video, this is Bakersoft signing out. Thanks for watching.